Yes.
Welcome to the announcement stream of Bergagårdshof 3. It's our third event, and it's a special event. It's a physical LAN game with around 40 players, and we have Axis in one house playing and sleeping in one house, and then we have the allies in a second house about a few kilometers away. And we play the game, and then we have a banquet in the evening. And what's new for this year is that we will be doing a live stream with a studio, a much more professional studio than than this. And we will have two live commentators, which is it will be myself. I'm Petter. I'm one of the founders of the community, a long-time player, etc. But this time I will be commentating together with Victor. Maybe you want to introduce yourself.
Yes. Well, my name is Victor. I am, I think, 4 or 5 star general at this point. So I have been with the community for some time, but I've never really reached the heights of tactical excellence, as they would say in the art of war. So I am also one of your commentators for this event. It will be very fun to do this. We will have a production value that is previously unseen, with studio interviews, different feel-good reports from the different parts of the LAN, and we will be very excited also to have Paradox with us in some capacity on site. And we are looking forward to an incredible event, and it will be very exciting to present the teams for you all.
And our goal is to provide a good gaming experience both for our community members, our players, but also for you, the viewers who will be watching us online. So yeah. So the plan for this stream right now, we'll be going for about an hour, not much more than that. And at first we will present the teams, and then we will go into a bit of analysis and predictions. So yeah, why don't we just jump into the teams?
Let's do it. So, let me know. I think you can see the graphics now, right?
Yeah, I'm just
Indeed.
trying to get the order right. So we begin with the big bad wolf, the Nazi Germany itself, and this time we will have 4 players on Germany. So the main controller is Jonathan Isaksson. He's an experienced Germany player and has played Germany many times. He's a good micro player, solid macro player as well. He's joined by Rosen, who's also a very experienced player, who's also played a lot of multiplayer Hearts of Iron outside of our community before. And then we have Patrick, bit of a newer player, and also Ivar, who's also he's only played one game before, and that was 5 years ago. So yeah, he played Sweden back then when we had Sweden in the game. So it'll be interesting for him to come back. I think I don't think he'll recognize the community.
And
Yeah.
this is looking like quite a dangerous Germany. We have also we have a lot of our most decorated players, but also with 4 people on Germany, we will have a much easier time to do the micro in the wars, because Germany has like a lot of different fronts and a lot of different things to think about. So with 4 players, it will be interesting to see this Germany for sure.
Moving on to Italy. And on Italy, the main controller will be Algot, supported by Hasleberg. Algot is also one of the founders of the community, very strong player. He's played Italy a number of times, has also played the UK, so he knows his enemy quite well. Hasleberg is a long-time player as well. He's got at least 2 stars. But he hasn't been in the winning team since 2019, so I think he really wants to win by now.
But he's decorated with an award from last game, playing France MVP Allies.
Yeah, so that's something. I think he will be a good supplement to Algot. We don't usually have 2 players on Italy, but this is a special and very big and important game.
Definitely, and also here, Italy is, in my opinion, also one of those countries that can really take advantage of having an extra player to be able to micro a lot, because you have both the naval game and you have obviously have Africa, and it can get quite intense at times. So it will be really interesting to see this Italy. Algot has not played Italy during 2022. I don't know if he have done so recently, but. Yeah, it will be a fun time in the Mediterranean Sea.
Definitely. So then, moving on to the first of the allies, up against Algots Italy is the UK, played by Johannes Badger Bed, who you also see on screen on the bottom of your screens. He's also one of the founders of the community and has been in, I think, almost every game we ever played. Correct me if I'm wrong, Johannes.
Yeah, correct.
He's a very strong player, of course, strong micro, a very preppy player. He always has a big document with strategies and builds and so on. He's a very experienced UK player too, and actually 20% of all his games have been as the UK. So it's
really?
strong, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
Okay.
We looked at the data, and also you have significant recent experience as the UK, because last fall Badger played 2 grand games in a row as the UK. Both of which the Allies lost, nota bene. But I do think he is hungry for revenge in the UK, and he is also our most veteran player with 39 games. That's the only one, right? I think the other ones fall short by 1 or 2. So that will be interesting to see. Also a lone UK.
Yeah, that's interesting. He might
at
be
risk of getting
overstretched.
yeah, he's at risk of getting out microed, but I think if there is someone who can be able to handle that still, it's probably Johannes. So it will be fun.
He's also, we will be coming to that later, spoiler warning, but some of his UK, should I say, Commonwealth minors or Allied minors are quite newer players, inexperienced, and Johannes is usually quite good in supporting them. So, but that could also be taxing when it comes to the game if they're not prepared in the game itself, because he won't have a lot of time to hold your hand in the game, I think.
I will make sure they are prepared.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Moving on then to the Soviets. And on the Soviets, we will also have 4 players this time. The main controller is Don, who is a very experienced player, a very experienced Soviet player, extremely preppy player. He likes to prepare, and he always has very min-maxed builds. So we probably see a very efficient Soviet with a lot of men in the field, we would say. Kevin is a bit of a newer player, usually ends up in the winning team for some reason, though. He's never played the Soviets before, though. Matthias Ivarsson is a strong micro player, and he's only gotten stronger in the later years, I think. He has a lot of experience from the Eastern Front, but hasn't been a lot on the Soviets, I think.
And also from the Sub-Saharan front.
This is true as well.
and Don is also he's also one of our 30 plus games players, and he is also the 30 plus games player with the highest win rate. And the interesting thing is that he has managed this as a mix of both Allied and Axis countries. Also, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but 4 players on the Soviet is quite a lot. But that's also a rectification, because we have had a game or a couple of games where the Soviets get out microed in a sense, because you have both Germany and Hungary and Bulgaria and Romania all coming in on the Eastern Front, and that can end the game quite quickly, even with a lot of preparation. So it will be interesting to see the 4 Soviet players being able to coordinate the micro better on the very broad front that is the Barbarossa part of the war.
Yeah, with 4 players, they should be able to cover the entire front, as well as with Mongolia. Then Arvidsson, the last of the 4, he only has 1 of the veterancy stars, but he will probably get good support from the rest of them. And he has played Mongolia once before, so he has a bit of Eastern Front experience, but I think he lost that game.
Yeah. Falk asked in the chat as well whether Don is the oldest player in the group in actual age, but Johannes doesn't think so.
No,
So.
I think he's up there, but I don't think he's the oldest. No,
I don't know.
No, I think actually PD is the same age, sitting in this call, I think. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, he's also our biggest YouTube star, as Algot said. It's
Johannes is close on his heels now with his latest clip.
Yeah, I would have
Three
to say
things you
so.
didn't
Yeah.
know about Radar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's a hit. It's a real boomer.
Yeah,
Bang,
and
bang.
also
See
a
it in your
little
local
plug
movie, your local cinema. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
Moving
also
on.
a little plug for our YouTube channel. Go follow and subscribe and stuff. Sorry, moving on.
Jakob says here in the chat that Rosen grows his own tomatoes, so he's definitely the oldest. I think that's.
Can you grow stuff in the Shetland Islands? On the Shetland Islands? Is that
probably
possible?
in a greenhouse or something, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Anyways, moving on over to the east.
No.
It's time for Japan, and on Japan we have Martin Falk and Kalle, both very experienced players, seven-star generals, both of them. And we could take the next country as well because it's related. It's Sticky on Manchu. And these three players, both Sticky and Kalle, joined the community through Martin, so they're friends from other games, and they have a long experience of playing both Hearts of Iron and other games together. So we can expect them being quite a tight, solid team, I think.
Yeah, indeed. Like they are coordinated. They are two 7-star generals on Japan. Also, Falk has an incredible shape curve with 79% win rate since the start of 2022. And being joined by another 7-star general and also a 5 on Manchu, this is probably one of the most dangerous Manchu Japans that we have seen in quite some time. So it will be a challenging situation for the people that have to stand against this trifecta of Japan and Manchu players.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, was that a bridge for me to click?
I don't
think
know.
so.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
And yeah, facing them on the other side of the Pacific Ocean, we have on the USA Jakob and Tvorik. Jakob is one of our most veteran players. Very good micro and macro. Also very much a prepper, and he likes to develop the meta. So you often see some innovative strategies from him. Tvorik is a bit of a newer player, but he's got quite a solid micro. But none of them have played the USA before, which is quite something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hello?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I think my internet is bugging out a bit. Yeah, but this will be a very interesting matchup because, as was said before, Jacob has played Japan quite a lot, but he has not played the US. So will he be able to turn his experience as Japan around into making an innovative and high game impact US, or will he fall short against these three quite a lot more veteran players, I have to say, because Jacob is one of our most consistently successful players in regards to innovation and division building and having a high game impact. But he is also a 3-star general as opposed to Falk and Kalles 7 stars and Stick is 5. So he has made a name for himself rather quick, and it will be very interesting to see him on a new country.
Definitely. Moving on the Raw, we have Pontus. Pontus recently did a great game playing Finland. He managed to beat Martin's Soviet in the Winter War, so that was a real solid thing to do. And I think Raj will fit his playstyle. He can prepare and he can hold the defense, and perhaps he's what the Allies need to stop this juggernaut of the Asia axis.
Yeah, that will be very interesting to see. There is some similarities between like the Raj defense against Japan and the Winter War, in some senses. I mean, there are great differences in manpower and naval invasions and so on. But I do think that a lot of the experiences learned from a successful Winter War can be properly applied in Raj as well. So it will be interesting to see.
I can just add there as well that Raj is one of the key countries when we set the teams, because if you have a Raj just collapsing against Asia axis, then the game is pretty much over for Allies. So it was actually that Pontus made a name for himself after last game playing Finland against Martin. We felt confident that he would definitely put up a good fight in this game as well.
Martin, on the other hand, will probably be out for his blood, though. So,
Yeah.
I would be a bit scared if I was Pontus.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he's hungry for revenge after the Winter War.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. Moving on. Let's see. Where are we? Right. Back to Europe and Spain. On Spain, we have Joachim Löfgren. He's an experienced player, but he hasn't played in 6 months, and he hasn't played Spain since 2016.
Wow.
So yeah,
A lot have happened since then.
Yeah, a lot has happened since then. And yeah, we actually had a couple of games ago where Spain lost the civil war. So yeah, let's hope it doesn't happen to him.
Yeah, it's an interesting country, Spain, because you can become quite a juggernaut late game if you play your cards right. But you can also one of the few countries where you can actually really lose out and get killed early, and that also gives the Allies, of course, a huge advantage. And now when we have 4 players on Soviets, then they can pretty much have 1 player microing every volunteer division. So it will be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not sure that's an upside to having 1 each.
I doubt it too.
Yeah, I think the Axis will. They're alarmed enough, so they will probably focus enough on the civil war, though.
Sorry, I clicked now. I thought that was the cue for next.
Oh, right. Next player we have on France, Magnus Ek, which is really interesting, I think. Magnus has never played France, but he's played majors before, and so the Soviets, among others, and he's done some really solid games. It usually comes down to whether he's had time to prepare or not, but this being the most important game of the year, I think he will have prepared. So it could be a proper speed bump for the European Axis if Magnus has a good game.
Yeah, and France can have quite a game impact also if they hold well. We saw last game that the Allies had quite a good France and a very, very good El Alamein and Middle East. Then it fell apart on the Eastern Front, but it can present quite a headache for the Axis if you have a good France. And it will be interesting to see Magnus in this role. It's a new role for him, but he has good experience as playing the Allies, or Comintern mostly, but still.
Yeah, and even if France falls, France is still one of the strongest Allied miners. So he could probably do a hell of a lot of good for the Allies even after France falls. Right, moving on then. We have Hungary, and on Hungary we have Francis. Francis is a good microing player. He's also quite vocal. He's good at energizing the team. You could say. He's most commonly playing co-ops on minors, on majors. I mean, but he's played Hungary once before, and I think that tanks is probably quite likely.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see Francis on Hungary, because, as you say, he is quite an inspirational player in the good and the bad. If you are late or unprepared, he will yell at you, and when you need the moral support, he will also yell at you. So it's it's a good swinging pendulum in that sense, and also it will be good to have an experienced Hungary for the Barbarossa. Now when Soviet has 4 players and Don is back on his comfort country, I do think that Hungary will be needed in order to perform well on the Eastern Front. So it will be interesting to see that coordination.
Yeah, Hungary can often be that extra country that kind of tips the scale in advantage of the Axis. It can be quite a fearsome, tanker group that they can attack with somewhere, all on their own, basically.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And a similar country, but on the Allies, we have Canada. And on Canada, we have Christian Bakiras. And he hasn't played for 1.5 years, but he's an experienced player of all Paradox games. But he's got a good micro, I think, and that's needed when you play in Canada.
Yeah. Also, Canada is probably one of those countries that do have a somewhat easier time if you haven't played for 1.5 years, because it's not one of the countries that have had extensive things done to it, right? It is, of course, the tanks and 1.5 years. It's probably La Resistance as well, right? So there are some things to read up on, but Canada might be a nice country if you're coming back from a hiatus.
Yeah.
You also have a good place to shine. If you do a good game, everyone will see it.
Yeah, but
that's right.
It's also quite a lot of pressure to come back playing Canada, since Canada is usually the MVP country on the ally side. They are the ones that can make a lot of things happen if they do it right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We'll see how he does. So moving on, we will present the rest of the Axis minors. And starting with Finland, we have Ivan. Ivan has never played Finland, but he has a great engagement with the game and is good at preparing. He will probably be a solid Finland, I think, because if you prepare just right, like I need to place 2 divisions there, 1 division there, build a supply depot there, then you can do quite well. So I think Finland is a good choice for him.
Yeah, definitely. Finland is also one of those countries where you can really capitalize on the planning, IRL planning, that is, and in-game planning for the Winter War, because since you can't do naval invasions as the Soviet, you pretty much know what you need to protect. So, and we have had Winter Wars going the way of Finland increasingly often, the latest games. Then again, I only won my Winter War that time on Bergårdhof because Magnus forgot to press the button, I have heard, after. But still, we have had some impact on Finland. And that also cripples the Soviets quite a lot, because you lose the Viipuri part, so it's harder to defend in the continuation war. And also you get the debuff, so it will be interesting.
Yeah, we've seen quite a few times how the Soviets sort of sacrificed the northern front because it's not the most important one. So the Finnish players have wreaked havoc recently.
Yeah, it's usually that you, as a Soviet player, when you don't have the micro enough, that's the front you give up, because you know that there won't be any like quick moving panzer thrusts coming from the north. It's just leg infantry moving slowly. So if you like don't look, at least you don't die that quick.
But now with that many Soviet players, he should get some micro resistance.
Definitely.
Yeah, and that's also like that's one of the deceptive things, because if you don't look at the leg infantry, once they are in, it's harder to dislodge them.
Yeah.
An overstretched tank division you can kill, but yeah.
Right, moving on, we have Oskar Eriksson on Romania. He's a solid veteran player. Good all-round player, good micro. He's played Romania once before. I think he's good at coordinating and cooperating with the other Balkan bros. So that's a dangerous player in the south there.
Definitely.
And moving on, we have on Siam Per, he will be complementing the trifecta already there. And Per is a very experienced player. He's had a good development the last few years. I think strong micro. We've also haven't seen I think what Siam can do, because they can be quite a strong minor if played correctly.
Definitely.
And then on Bulgaria, we have Tobias Hammarström, also known as Tobias Hammerstrat, because he likes to build strat bombers. We've never yet seen a Bulgaria building strat bombers, I think. Maybe this is the first time. But he also has experience playing tank miners, and has done a good job doing so. So we might see some motorized, mechanized, or light tanks or something coming from him.
Yeah, definitely. And also, it's this is brewing up to be quite a dangerous Eastern Front as well for the Soviets. Even though they have 4 players now and they are experienced, we have 5-star general on both Hungary and Bulgaria, and a very experienced Germany as well. So both all of the miners that can really make an impact on the Eastern Front have solid players on them, I would say, and that is can always prove to be a problem for the Soviets. So it will be a very interesting Eastern Front, this event.
And then the last 3 players, these are the least experienced in the Axis. We have Martin Hansson on Yugoslavia. We haven't used Yugoslavia that much in our games recently, but they have potential to be quite strong. He's only played 3 games with us, last time playing Ireland. And yeah.
And I can just add that the Yugoslavia in the patch notes from yesterday got an overhaul on their focus tree. So Yugoslavia is finally getting some focus. It's not a commonly used nation. It's one of the nations that you remove if you don't have players enough. But since we are quite a lot of players, and you can see down that we even have Albania playing, it's actually, like you said, one of the stronger countries that are often overlooked and just becomes like factories for Italy. But if played correctly, they can be quite strong, to be honest.
Yeah, it also adds on to the Eastern Front pressure as well, or at least has the potential to, depending on how you play it. So it will be interesting to see.
A qualified guess could be, though, that they try to, through the focus decisions, to make Yugoslavia smaller, as he's less experienced. But you never know how they do it.
That will be interesting to see as well, how newer and experienced Yugoslavia has the interaction with Algot, which is one of our most veteran players. That dynamic will be very important for the war in the Mediterranean and so on.
We will see the night before if he manages to charm the German players, the leaders of the Axis, and then depending on that goes, it will determine the size of his country the day after.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyways, and then we have Alexander Björnsrud on Vichy France. He's a new player. He's only played 3 games, which Vichy might be a good beginning country. He will probably be cooperating with Löfgren on Spain, and he's a bit more experienced player, so you can probably get some backup from him. And then last and least, Anton on Albania. I mean, not Anton as a player. He's a new player, but I don't know. But Albania is the smallest Axis country. So it's a good beginner country. And this is his first time playing with us, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So welcome, Anton. Welcome to the community.
And
welcome indeed. And also, I will have to, in your favor, I will have to say that Albania, just as Jacob said in the chat here, can have a significant game impact. Because last game we saw how Albanian paratroopers messed up the supply lines in Soviets, leading to a quick overrun in the Eastern Front. So,
and he won a Greatest Play award, I think, for that.
Yeah, I think so as well, right?
Yeah, I think so. But
So potential impact, we'll see.
yeah, but also don't get fooled by Albania. They might look really weak, but we have also buffed that country a little bit in our version of the mod. So they are not as weak as you would think they are. So they are a bit more playable.
And speaking about the mod, we can say we're playing a version of their finest bra, but we've made some adjustments to suit our community. But a big thank you to the creators of that mod. We've been using it for a long time.
Yeah, indeed, and it's also starting to work even better. We've had, I think, our last games have been rather stable. Not to jinx anything before the big event, but we have had some lobby simulator games.
Okay,
that
so
has not been the case.
The 3rd of September 2150, that's when you jinxed it.
Oh yeah.
But
Okay.
the more downtime we have, the more time me and Victor have to talk about.
Oh, okay. So. That's
Yeah,
true.
true.
That's true.
Moving on, we have all of the allies miners. Starting with Australia, we have Ville Nordström. He's a veteran player. He's almost only played the allies, and he's played the Australia once before. A lot of experience in the Pacific Theater, so I think he should be a solid Australia.
Yeah, and he's also
Yeah.
one of the players coming back from a longer break, but played 2 games recently, I think. So he's
before that, he
warmed
had
up.
a break of years, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he had a long hiatus when I look at the data, but interestingly, he was in both of the first games in 2016.
I played in
So
France,
he
I
is-
think, his very first game, if I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true. But it will be very interesting to see all these players that are coming back from long breaks after a long time and see how the things that have happened to the game and how the patches have developed and so will affect them. So it will be interesting. Welcome back, Will.
On South Africa, we have Stan. He has 1 veteran star. He's played South Africa before, and he will probably get a lot of help from Johannes as the UK with builds and which tanks to lend-lease and whatnot. He recently won as the main controller on Soviet in one of our blitzes, which is quite the feat. Being the main controller of Soviet is never easy, so hats off to him. That's a quality assurance just there. Moving on Brazil, we have Stephens, a very experienced player, but he hasn't played since the end of 2022, and the rumors say he says he's a bit rusty. So let's see if he can get back in time. He's played Brazil once before.
Yeah,
I
but
remember also he had a play of the game one time when he took Gibraltar due to some shenanigans, right?
Yes, that's
That
correct.
sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, but he had some quite high impact games last year. So if he's up to back in his former shape, he will definitely be a factor to count on, either in Europe or in the Pacific, depending on what the strategy will look like.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part about Brazil also, that they can make the impact in both of those places. So you never really know what you're going to get with Brazil. So it would be interesting to see Stephens in that role.
It's definitely a country that's big enough to tip the scales in a select theater, and they could show up anywhere in the world, basically, due to their location. Moving on Mongolia, we have Jonathan Sarge. Sarge is a strong micro player. He's played Mongolia once before, but has been around the Eastern Front a lot. I think he could be a good Mongolia player. Let's hope he does better than what Jonte did when he lost all his divisions in like the first battle or something. Never forget.
Hashtag never forget.
And Mongolia can really have a big impact on the Eastern Front as well, because they are able to specialize in a bigger sense than the Soviets, which has to do a very broad like defense strategy. You can do a lot of things as Mongolia.
Yeah,
I see Jonte crying in the chat here.
yeah. But I also I realized now that it's a bit bad from my end not to put Mongolia up in the upper brackets here when presenting the teams. They should have been next to the Soviets because it is a high impact country on the Eastern Front, just as Hungary is on the Axis side. Mongolia is equivalently strong on the Comintern side, so they can be a really strong factor. Like the recent Blitz game we had when Martin played Mongolia, he wreaked complete havoc on the Eastern Front. The second the Allies landed and they took some eyes on off the micro on the Eastern Front, he could attack everywhere all the time. So they can be really dangerous if played right.
Yeah, they have
Definitely
big potential, but Jonte is not the only Mongolia who's had zero impact. I mean, they can also just take one wrong step and then they're gone for the game. So it's sweaty.
Yeah, it's a bit of a glass cannon counter.
Yeah, you could say, yeah.
Never forget.
Never forget. Right. Moving on Mexico, we have Remefors. He's been to most games since he joined our community in 2021.
Mr. Truck.
Yeah. Just
If
keep
you
on
catch
trucking.
that, yeah, no, yeah. Sorry, I have to explain that. It was when he played the US a lot of games ago, when we did the after game analysis and we saw that he had a stockpile of, I can't remember if it was like 80,000 trucks or something. He just had I've never seen so many trucks ever. So after that, we've been calling him Mr. Truck. I think in his face and not only behind his back, but he was the real trucker, yeah.
Yeah, he's played Mexico once before. He's usually quite a stable, reliable player.
Yeah, 150,000 trucks. That was the number.
150,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
That is a lot of trucks.
Yeah.
You should get some special award with the truck on it.
Yeah. But that's the US for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that also goes to show that the US is really a sleeping giant in that sense. They have such an incredible industry base, but you need to be able to capitalize on all that production as well. That has been a deciding factor in quite a few games. I will save the rest for the analysis, and we can move on to present.
Yeah. And next we have on Ireland, Johannes Bexell. He's just played with us once before, and then he was in the losing team. So he's probably got some thoughts of revenge, I guess. Ireland, though, is a good country for newer players, and he's right next to Johannes, so Johannes can't ignore him. He will have to give him help, or Johannes' western flank is exposed, so he'll probably get some help there.
Yeah.
Moving on New Zealand, we have Mattias Sundström. He has one veteran star, so he's played a few games with us. He's played New Zealand once before, but like Bexell, he lost that game. Yeah, I don't have much more to say there.
I think it's also good to know that Sundström, Eklund, and Stan are very close friends and will play and prep together. So we usually see some synergies of people prepping and preparing together as well for a game like this. So that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, especially like as the New Zealand, you can really help in the different fights around the islands in Asia. So
or somewhere else.
True.
Yep. Moving on to Holland, we have Gustav Andersson. He's played Holland once before on the last Bergagårdhof, but from my memory, he wasn't much of a speed bump then. I'm not sure how he did in Asia. Do you guys remember?
Can't remember.
No, not really, no.
Anyways, now he has a second chance to show what he's made of. And on Poland, we have Sebastian Eklund. He's a newer player, has never played Poland before. Poland hasn't been around too long, though, in our games, so I still think we have a lot of unseen potential in Poland. They've had a couple of strong games where the Poles show up and make a difference in places, but yeah, I think there's a lot else to do that hasn't been done.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those countries where you can experiment a lot, and that also kind of it's good to have a newer player because then you have a fresh outlook on things. So you might innovate some more and discover some interesting synergy. Because Poland is obviously one of those places that will fall. I mean, you might go Republican Spain, or you might win or lose the Winter War, but Poland will always lose, and what you will do in exile is the impact.
And Jakob says here in the chat that he managed to hold both Java and Sumatra, and if you do that as Holland, that's enough in my book.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But one thing that's often also overlooked as Poland is that they are quite strong in the air game. They get 500 latest models of fighters from their national focus tree, and by the time of the game where they get those 500 fighters, it's quite a huge, like a big percentage of the total Allied air force at that point. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how Poland can impact this game.
Right, so that's our players, that's the lineups, and there still might be some small changes if we get some last-minute player or so, but this should be almost it, guaranteed. Moving on then to our a bit of an analysis. I'm thinking we could start at the lineup on the Eastern Front. We've already mentioned a lot of it, so maybe we shouldn't be too long-winded. But yeah, the 4-player Soviet is a big factor. Probably won't see the Soviets being out-microed because they don't have the attention capacity. But the Axis have a strong lineup, both in the Balkans and in Finland and on Germany. So yeah, it's going to be a slog, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And also, as we said, it kind of adds up with all this. We have experienced Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania. But also the micro thing, it kind of has diminishing returns. As long as you have 4 people microing, you do not add on that much by having 6 or 7 or 8. So I do think they will do fine in the micro game. And also we have Mongolia as well, with an experienced good micro player. So he will not stand alone. So yeah, it will be a very interesting Eastern Front.
We have a question from the chat. Which World War II tank would you date if given such an opportunity? And I would have to say the Panzer IV, because it's not very flashy, but it's steady and reliable, and you can get a lot of mileage out of it. Yeah, that would be the perfect date for me.
That's a good question. I think that one of those old Soviet ones, what are they called? Like the T-30 something.
KV-1?
Yeah, interesting, simple things.
Yeah. Back to the Eastern Front.
Back to the Eastern Front. I think a factor could be. I think a deciding factor could be flexibility. Like both sides will have pretty thought out game plans, but what happens when you look at the intel and you see the Soviets are not building tanks, for example, which is it's not out of the realms of possibility, because Don loves his garrison builds and infantry. So what do you do then as the Axis? Do you have the flexibility to change your build to make it more soft attacky and whatnot to adapt? I think that could be a thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And,
Also we have had quite a lot of games where an infantry Soviet have had a high impact. I remember the ones with the heavy artillery where the Axis really could not break through, and you had the defense in depth, and it pretty much went as it did historically.
Yeah, I was the Romania player there, and it was frustrating, to say the least.
Yeah, I can imagine.
What was usually quite interesting on the Eastern Front is that when we have the Soviet builds with an infantry orientation, they usually survive much longer, buying time for the Allies to come into the game, but they usually don't have that much bite back. Whereas if we have an armored oriented Soviet, they can win the game on their own, basically, but if they collapse or lose the early fights, they will probably die really quick because they don't have any like durability.
And also no real way to kill a bunch of Axis troops.
No.
Can't encircle them.
No.
Yeah, that was the Eastern Front. Nothing more to add there, I think. If we move to the North Africa front, Johannes usually does well in the lineup versus Algot. I think they've played each other as Italy and UK many times. I think Johannes usually does all right, but he has a lot of unexperienced miners with him. So I think that's a factor.
Yeah, and that also can present an issue because more is not always better in the low supply regions of Africa, because sometimes you end up in a situation where there is just like too much soldiers in an area and you lose out supply. Shout out to Dawn for a supply video that you can watch if you want to learn more about that. And
You
that
should
will be a
definitely
challenge.
watch our tutorials on YouTube. They're great.
So
but-
that's a coordination. Sorry.
Yeah. No, sorry, I interrupted you. But Algot is not alone on Italy, though. He has Hasselberg, while Johannes is alone on the UK. So maybe we'll see a very, very stretched UK. We'll have to see.
Algot is
Yeah,
sticking out his nose here in the chat. I believe I actually have a 100% win rate on Italy. Wow.
Oh, that must be true, actually.
Yeah.
True. How many data points?
Yeah, no, but it might also be that Algot win the game but dying as Italy. That we don't know.
True. And also, it will be interesting to see. I do not know that much about Yugoslavian game impact, to be honest, but they have a coast on the Mediterranean. They might not, depending on how you go about it in the game, I guess, but potentially that could give some impact in the Mediterranean. Also, Albania. But I don't know.
Algot does have a 100% win rate as Italy. I just checked. He's played Italy twice, and both of those times he won. So.
Well.
Don reminds us of an interesting anecdote when Algot played Italy and he built like 2,000 radar stations. That was quite epic. But what we didn't know then was the great strengths of radar, which is explained in a recent tutorial clip from our channel. So 3 things you didn't know about radar. Check it out. Maybe radar wasn't that bad after all.
Indeed.
And yeah, we will see what happens in North Africa. It's usually a question of where the border stops before it solidifies. How far can the Germans and Italians get before the Germans have to start worrying about Barbarossa? And can Italy hold the Allies pushing back afterwards?
Yeah, indeed. And it will also be interesting to see, because now when this is such a large and important game with experienced players and all the majors, it will be interesting to see whether or not the Axis dares to do any like naval landings behind enemy lines and so on. Because last grand game we had a very challenging situation as the Allies in Africa, and then the Axis did a landing around like Tel Aviv and those places, and it looked very, very bleak for a long time. But then we managed to, I played Allies, then we managed to eke out a victory, killing a lot of Axis troops. And will the Axis dare to do those innovative, high risk, high reward plays in a game like this? I'm not sure, but it will be interesting to see.
Yeah, that's a factor they didn't. Never mind. I'll get to it later.
Yeah, but Algot is one of those high risk players. So I mean, I won't show my hand too much, but I'm kind of expecting Algot to do we call it crazy plays, if that makes
Says
sense.
the guy who sacrificed his entire Polish army in Syria as Germany.
Yeah, but you have to surprise people once in a while, don't you?
But Algot is the crazy one.
Yes. Fair. Yeah.
Right. I think that's as far as North Africa goes. Moving on to Asia then. Like we said, we have a very strong Asia axis. They are, though, I would say, quite conservative as players. They don't usually do a lot of crazy strats. What would you say?
I would agree. Like these are like the old generals, you know. when it comes to the stars, when it comes to the games, they are solid. But it will be very interesting to see them going up against Jakob and Torik. Jakob is a known innovator and trying out new stuff, and has been quite successful with it historically. So the preparation game here will be quite important. And also, like the island hopping might have a lot of impact from different minors as well. When we have New Zealand and we have Holland, and we have quite experienced minors in the Axis. Siam, for example, with 5-star general. Per is experienced as well, so it will be interesting to see the lineups meet up there.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. One thing that's important to factor into the Pacific play is that in the mod we're playing, if the Axis starts to taking too many islands, it will give us like a heavy debuff for the Euro allies when attacking all the Axis countries in Europe. So it kind of forces the hand on the US and the rest of allies to go quite aggressively on Pacific play early, to not lose too many islands, or at least retake the islands quickly, because it will be impossible to invade Europe otherwise.
Yeah, I think knowing that Jakob is quite an innovative player, and especially in the naval game, you might see Martin and the Asia Axis saying, "Screw Navy, we're going more land focused and try to crack Raj or something." But they can't ignore the seas altogether, though, both because of the buffs for holding the islands, as you say, but also due to the fact that we've had quite a few games now where Japan has been completely debilitated by the lack of convoys and allied raiding, basically. Martin has the knowledge, though, to counteract this. So I think, yeah, he can't ignore the naval game completely, but he might want to.
Yeah, definitely. It will be interesting to see also how you see the innovation, how it synergizes with like the base place, the logistics, and so on. Because if you focus everything on new fancy strategies, you might miss out on the low-hanging fruit, like having solid logistics and so on. I remember last game we had. Singapore was holding. We had this nice front line. It was more or less a slog, kind of a deadlock. And then there came in like a naval invasion from Japan with floating harbors and stuff, and they just did some shenanigans and everything fell. So innovation can have incredible game impact, but you need a solid base to stand on in order to capitalize on it, I think.
One thing to note is that in this game we have neither a Malaya player or a Philippines player, which we've had before. So the allies are a bit weaker in that regard. And seeing as that's the case, I think we will see the US focusing more on the Pacific than otherwise. I think they will need to.
Any comments on the Burma front?
Yeah, I think usually it's quite. It's the most vulnerable early on. Then you sort of just have the amount of forces you need as Raj to defend, and you probably need some help defending the front as well if you have the Asia Axis focusing on you. But if that front solidifies and calcifies, and you have the allies covering up the Indian Ocean with boats, then you could see a frozen border there.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the small matches in the match, because we have Pontus and we have Martin that will duke it out there. And last game, what?
Grudge match.
Yeah, indeed. Like we had an interesting winter war last time when Pontus did a sneak capture of Leningrad and won the winter war as Finland, and it will be interesting to see that matchup again on the Burma front.
Maybe we'll see a sneak take of Bangkok this time.
We've seen a few of those.
Yeah, let's see.
Let's hope Per remembers to garrison Bangkok. That's rule one as playing Siam.
Yeah, all your victory points in one place, basically.
Yeah, the garrisons can be a bit challenging sometimes, because you need to it can be devastating if you miss like 1 point or have like a little weak point, and someone makes a landing and gets a harbor that can really decimate you. So
Right.
yeah,
Those were the main theaters, I would say. We could also talk a bit about like the European allies and the possibility or likelihood of a successful D-Day, maybe.
yeah,
Um,
sure.
so the Joachim on Spain and Alexander on Vichy, they will be the main Atlantic Wall defenders, I guess. Alexander being a bit of a newer player, so maybe that's a weak spot, maybe not. We will see. We will probably have Johannes building Marines. That's probably a safe bet, so we'll see some landings there. Yeah, I think especially with Brazil and Mexico as jokers there, you could see some solid D-Day invasions, I think.
I think one thing to take into consideration for this game when everyone is preparing well is if we look at the last game we had, the last grand game, where the strategy for Euro Axis was if we would lose North Africa, we would just pull back, put navs and subs everywhere, and that worked extremely well. So the Allies could never really come close to any serious naval invasions in Europe, and if they did, all their divisions landed with half strength and were thrown out into the ocean right away. So it can be quite easy to defend yourself with subs if the Allies don't know what they're doing or if they're not prepared for it.
Yeah, and that's a trend we've seen in quite a few games lately, that submarines are very strong and hard to counter. You need lots of flying boats and navs and spotting fleets and whatnot. And yeah, a lot of people don't know how.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big issue. But now we have learned the strength of radar, which also increases your sub detection. So
I think we will see a
will
lot
see
of
how it
radars.
goes this game. Yeah, definitely. And also an interesting part about the D-Day, it's one of those things that really requires planning and coordination, uh, in a sense that you really only get from games where you prepare a lot in advance, and also the nature of like sitting together, being able to in person go over the plans the night before. All of those things I think play heavily in the favor for D-days and different types of coordinated landings. So I think there is high D-day potential in this game, I would say, but
Yeah.
that depends on a lot of things in the war, of course.
Conversely, we might have a bit of a sea lion potential as well. Algot, as Italy, usually loves his fleets. He'll probably build some boats, and you never know if Jonte or Rosen has some crazy strat to build some boats as well. Especially after that successful German naval game that you were talking about, Johannes. Yeah, we'll see. It'll be exciting to see if the Euro Axis what they do navally.
Yeah, yeah, it really will. And also, I remember last Grand Game we had a very active Euro-Axis navy. It was both the invasion in Syria, Tel Aviv, and those places, and different Sea Lion attempts. And both the Syrian invasion and the Sea Lion attempts failed rather miserably in the end. But then again, like you still have the navy, right? So you can never really be safe, even though an invasion fails, because the people that die are the soldiers. The boats are still there, so it will be interesting, definitely.
Yeah.
Right, I think that's all that I had. Do we have any questions from the chat, maybe?
Or anything you want us to bring up?
I can't think of anything at the moment. Maybe like, how do you think the Middle East will go? Like Iran and.
Yeah, we were thinking about the rule change for Iran. Maybe you would like to elaborate, Johannes.
Yeah, so the plan is for next game is that you may only declare war through focuses. So it has been open for interpretation before that you can justify and declare once we're past the point of Danzig War. But we will most likely change those rules for this game, so meaning that the Axis will not be able to declare war on Iran unless Soviet have taken Iran, basically. So it kind of builds a shield for Raj if allies fail early in Egypt. But we're also discussing right now if there should be a date cap to this, so Axis can declare later. But let's see how that turns out.
We have a question here if there are any other changes in the mod since last game. I think you know best, Johannes.
Yeah, there is a mod change log on the Finest Bra in workshop. I looked at it earlier today and it was updated yesterday. So we'll take those updates into our version of the mod and save it and lock it, I think, tonight or tomorrow. But a new focus tree for Yugoslavia was one of them. There were also some other significant changes, but I can't remember which now. Maybe it's Martin Falk is here to write a comment about it. But yeah, have a look at the changelog.
Jakob probably knows too. Jakob is the one who does our modding.
It's updated right now. Okay, so our mod is updated. So or our version of the Finest Bra. So that's great.
So the so the version you see now on your Steam, that's the one we will be using.
Yes, and it will be locked from now on. So any patches from this point forward will not be taken. Okay. This is a significant change. Officer training. If you remember that you can have in the decision tree, you can spend some command power to get one general under level 3, a random trait after 1 year. If you spend some command power, that has now been changed quite dramatically. So you can pick which trait, but you can't pick which general. So now you can actually decide to give commandos trait to a general. So it's quite powerful, especially if you play a smaller country with a few starting generals. Then you can basically give a trait to the general you want, which is quite strong.
Yeah, for your newer players, a big thing is to try to stack modifiers. So you want the advisors giving a certain bonus, and then you try to find other bonuses that stack with that one, and you can get quite good results.
Yeah. Have a look at the changelog at the Finest Bra, and you see all the changes. I also know that cavalry advisor, I think it's the cavalry advisor that's been nerfed as well. So mechanized is not as strong anymore. A little bit nerfed.
Right. Well, I really look forward to the 23rd of September, or actually the 22nd, when we will meet, all of us. There will be a lot of people that I meet for the first time, but that we've played together with for many years. So that's going to be good fun.
And also maybe a shout out to the people behind the studio.
Right.
Yeah, indeed. Mossberg and Lucas, they are famous for productions such as Fredrik Kopp's Foodora stream and other great events in history. So we will have production value through the roof now. Studios, interviews, graphics, and everything, and that's thanks to those guys and all the work that they put into this community. So that's very appreciated.
Definitely, we're going to have a solid technical team.
Indeed, we will. And also, thanks for your confidence in us as commentators. It will be a pleasure to run through all the exciting moments and different happenings at the event.
It will be like a cricket game or a golf game, covering a whole day of commentating. So you guys will be tired once we're done with it.
Probably. But it's also quite a new concept to have commentators for an entire Hearts of Iron match. I don't think that's been done too many times before. So stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely interesting. We're trying to create some new innovative things here, and the HOI4 community has just started in regards to these things. So you will be hearing a lot more from this community in the future, and more things.
And also the game will be streamed on both Twitch, and the Twitch account will be announced in our YouTube community chat once we get a little bit closer. And
maybe you could post a link to the YouTube in the chat.
Yeah, but it will also be streamed on YouTube. So we'll stream on both YouTube and Twitch. So if you already subscribe to our YouTube channel, that's also where you can watch the game with Victor and Peter for the whole day.
There will also be some players streaming their games, so you can get their point of view. Johannes as the UK, Dan as Soviet, and Jakob as the US, at least. Also, Algot as Italy will probably be streaming on their own Twitch accounts. So if you want to see their point of view, you can do that.
And Jonte and Martin as well. Falk.
Ah, right.
Yeah. All right.
So,
I think that was it, right? So
Thank you.
I think so as well.
I will see you on the 23rd of September.
Indeed, we will meet on the battlefield,
Yeah.
and we will meet in the studio, Peter.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.